Where are the drinks with the umbrellas?
So I'm gonna mute
Hi, good
everyone.
evening,
I'm
Jeff.
gonna mute everyone.
Everybody.
Hello.
Okay, so we're gonna begin. Tonight we have Rabbi presenting biblical humor in honor of Simchat Torah. And just before we begin, I want to just go over our upcoming programs so that you can mark them down. Tomorrow night, October 8th at 7 p.m., Sisterhood is having their annual Sukkah Sizzle. That'll also be on Zoom. Then on Sunday, October 18th at 10 a.m., Sisterhood is having a book discussion on Zoom. And that same day, Sunday, October 18th, Congressman Ted Deutsch is coming at 2 p.m. on Zoom to talk to us about anti-Semitism. On Tuesday, October 20th at 7:30 p.m., we're having a discussion about vaccinations with a local pharmacist. And then on October 29th, that'll be the start of a class called Psalms. It's going to be taught by Cantor Sharon Steinberg, and there's 5 classes in this series. So we're very excited about all those upcoming programs, and if you have any questions, you can call me at the office or go on our website to register. So because Rabbi is going to tell a lot of jokes this evening, I wanted to start off with one that I found that I think everyone might appreciate. So here goes. A rabbi recounted this story. With all the instant messaging and texting lingo going around, with abbreviations like LOL, which means laugh out loud, OMG, which means oh my God, and BTW, which means by the way, I asked a young lady named Kayla if she would be going to shul this Shabbat, and she replied to me, JFK. JFK? What does that mean, I asked. Kayla answered politely, just for Kiddush. And with that, Rabbi, please take over.
That was a good one, Alana. Why don't you take over? All right, so here's the problem with muting everybody. I won't be able to tell if you're laughing. And I think it's probably safe to say that that may not happen too often. But we'll give it a shot. So just as a word of introduction, Simchat Torah literally means the joy of Torah. And while it certainly is, in my mind at least, difficult not to associate joy with humor and laughter as the obvious expression of joy, but there are other forms of joy as well. Studying Torah is a joy. So there's going to be a piece of serious Torah study in tonight's session, but mostly it'll be an attempt at biblical humor. And, you know, we all think that humor is the best medicine. If you came for laughs, I'm hoping this is the right place. So some are original, some are not, and I'm not going to tell you which ones are which. So I'm going to start with a bunch of one-liners. Then we'll do the Torah study. Then I'll do a couple of more serious story-type jokes. The first few are, and by the way, calling it biblical humor sometimes is a bit of a stretch. But I do hope that we will get at least a few smiles, if not laughs. And I do know that people are on edge to watch the vice presidential debate. So we will be sure to be done with plenty of time. And if you're not interested in the debate, I'm sure some of us on screen are interested in listening and watching the Yankees, which is actually more important. Anyway, so the first question is, how do we know Rebecca in the Bible, how do we know that she played baseball? Because she carried a pitcher. All right, you're all on mute. How come I heard a groan? That's pretty impressive. All right, how do we know that the generation of the Exodus loved baseball during their 40 years in the desert? Well, we know that because they took a lot of short stops. Who played tennis in the Bible? Joseph, of course. He played in Pharaoh's courts. And how do we know that Moses was a pharmacist? Because he passed out 2 tablets, of course. And let's see what else we got here. Let's go to modern times. Our current president, I don't mean of the shul, I mean of the United States. And by the way, Mazel Tov to our current president and his wife. They became grandparents. I don't know if you know that, but Mazel Tov to them. Beautiful little baby. In any event, how do we know that our current president was a musician way back in the time of King David? We know that because it says in the book of Psalms, sing to the Lord with the music of the harp, blast the sounds of trumps. And you know, the Democratic candidate for president wasn't really taking the campaign seriously. He was just biding his time. Yes, groaning is definitely medicinal. What does the Democratic vice presidential candidate have to do with crossing the desert in biblical times? They rode on camelas. And that leads us to ask about the Republican vice presidential candidate. I don't know how many of you know this. It hasn't been reported, but he has 5 siblings. That's why he sings, sing a song of sixpence.
Oh.
This is going to be a long evening, ladies and gentlemen. All right, let's see what else we got here. Did you know that the coronavirus began with a Chinese baseball team? They were called the Wuhan Bats. And let's see what else we found here. Abraham, back in the Bible, tried to teach his son Isaac about baseball. He showed him how to make a sacrifice.
Oh.
Yeah, I know. Okay, let's see what else we got here. How about Sigmund Freud? Why did he love the holiday of Sukkot? Well, we know he loved the holiday of Sukkot because one of his main therapies was designed to boost your ego. And did you know that, speaking of Freud, some people have a phobia when it comes to using the lulav and the etrog? They get the shakes. Did you ever go to a sukkah party hosted by your bank? If the answer is no, I guess you bank at a different branch.
Oh.
And the last in this category, what was the world's first pandemic? It's mentioned in the Bible. The world's first pandemic was the Achash virus.
Oh.
Hey, that leads us to some serious Torah study. I know you're probably thinking that was the serious stuff. All right, so a few words about the construction of a sukkah. This is serious study, because that's part of the joy of Torah too. As you can imagine, as the technology and architecture, if you will, of house or home building evolved over the course of time, certain issues arose as the Jewish tradition evolved. And specifically, some of the halachic discussions as they relate to what is a proper kosher sukkah and what isn't. So, as I'm sure many of you have learned, There are certain things that are required. And there are certain things that people mention every now and then, but it's not clear where they're written. And for example, how many walls must one have? Some people say you have to have 4. Some people say, no, it can be 3. Some people say you can actually have a sukkah with 2. And you can use an existing wall. Some people say yes, some people say no. And the top of the sukkah has a lot of questions about it. What can you use? What kind of material? Most of us were raised learning that the schach, whatever is that used for the cover or the so-called temporary roof, must be something natural. But we'll see that it's very complicated. What we know for a fact is that Sukkot is a time when we leave the protection of our homes and move into the sukkah. And we live where only the schach separates us from the sky above. For some, however, building a sukkah directly under the sky comes with complications. What if you're living in a kind of village, town, or community where behind your house, the most likely place to build a sukkah is filled with trees? And let's say you don't have enough room to build a sukkah between the trees. It's a possibility. So that's one question. And then the other question is, how much shade is the schach supposed to provide? Is there such a thing as too much shade? So one thing many of us have learned is that you have to be able to see through and at least see the stars at night. But again, it's not so clear and it's not so simple. So you can imagine that in the course of time, as what looked to be a typical home changed, then some of the approaches to what's a temporary home had to change as well. If we go all the way back to the Mishnah, which was the first attempt to summarize Jewish law, the Mishnah compares a sukkah under a tree. Somebody had to build the sukkah under a tree, thinking the tree maybe can provide the schach. All right, but the Mishnah tells us that you're not allowed to do that. You can't use a tree that's still a tree as the schach. They compared a sukkah under a tree to as if it was an indoor sukkah, which is invalid. And it's not valid for 2 reasons. One, because it's a permanent place and you're supposed to be in a temporary place. And secondly, the mitzvah of sukkah is to leave the home to go into the sukkah. You're not leaving the home if it's an indoor sukkah. So there are all kinds of questions about the tree. And it says, one who builds a sukkah under a tree, it's as if it was built inside of a house, and that clearly is invalid. But then the question becomes changed a little bit a couple of centuries later. One of the great rabbis ruled that this only applies to a tree that provides more shade than sunlight. However, if its sunlight is greater, then it's valid. So you really have to look up and literally measure how much coverage of the sukkah itself is covered and how much of it is open. And you have to sort of measure with your eyes, it's 50%, it's 70%, whatever it is, so that one is more than the other. The question then becomes, suppose there's an area where we plan to build a sukkah, but one of the corners had a few branches hanging over the area. Do you have to cut the branches down? The answer after a long-winded discussion is not really. You can leave the branches there. If the sukkah has enough valid schach without the tree, and the tree only covers a minority of the sukkah, then the sukkah is valid. That leads us to one of the next stages in the development of home building, where things that don't provide shade. And for a while, some people were asking in the Middle Ages, if you put a sheet under the schach, but over the sukkah, what would be the reason? To prevent leaves from falling down and making all the schmutz and a mess on your table that you're eating meals at inside the sukkah. So at first they said no, later on they said yes, then they came back with another no, And then the final conclusion was, if the sheet was meant just for decorative purposes, it's allowed. If it was meant to catch the leaves, then it's not allowed. So you got to decide what you're using it for and what its purpose is. The next issue that comes up goes back to the 17th century in Egypt, of all places, where most of the homes in 17th century Egypt had no windows. No windows at all. And in order to provide light for the house, they would build a skylight in the roof of the house. All right, the skylight was big enough to construct a sukkah underneath it. But there was a problem. In order to prevent bugs from coming in, they put a netting at the top of the skylight. Now the question became, if you're using that space for your sukkah, is it permitted or not? Because a netting is obviously not a natural thing. So there were yeses, there were nos, and that went back and forth for a while. And the eventual decision was issued by the authority of the chief rabbi of Egypt at the time, that it should be treated the same as an overhanging tree. So the chief rabbi of Egypt based his decision on how homes in Egypt looked. But the chief rabbi of France, whose homes were probably different, would not have issued that ruling. So sometimes the rulings are predicated on the specifics of where you're living. The last architectural point, and then we'll start closing this part up, has to do with more modern homes like balconies and overhangs and patios. And the answer is, if you have a permanent ceiling in the structure over which you're building, a picture outside on a big apartment building, and you have a patio that you can go out and sit on, can you build a sukkah there? Well, it depends on whether or not there's a permanent ceiling over your patio from the apartment that's right above you. So because of that, the answer is you can't do that if it's permanent. But if there's a space between the floor above you, which is the ceiling above you, if there's a space between that floor and the next apartment up, two floors up, then it's permitted. So that means that many apartment buildings are built with the sukkah in mind. So when they build the patios, they kind of alternate where the ceiling goes, so that you have enough room to build your sukkah on your patio, and the next floor up is, like diagonally across rather than right on top of you. And in the marketing of real estate, this is a major issue that you will see in a lot of want ads where people are selling or renting out an apartment. They will say, comes with the sukkah patio. That's what it means, that you can build your sukkah on there, which is pretty impressive. Now, finally, just to close this out and turn from the very exciting details, I'm sure you're all excited, to a more mystical, Kabbalistic attempt to find meaning in all this, I turn to Rabbi Avraham Mordechai Alter, who, in discussing all the different shapes and sizes of sukkahs, notes that the shape of the minimal sukkah, the minimal requirement, is based on the Hebrew letter Hey. You can picture the Hebrew letter Hey. It's got a roof, it's got one permanent wall, it's got an open bottom, and then another kind of like part of a wall, half of a wall. That's what makes it a Hey. And then he compares that to the whole word sukkah. In Hebrew, the three letters that spell sukkah is a samach, a kaf, and a hey. So he says the samach represents a sukkah with four walls, because if you look at the way the samach looks, it's completely enclosed. So it means it has all four walls. If you look at the Hebrew, or think of the Hebrew letter kaf, or kaf if it has a dot in it, you got a roof, you got a wall, and you got a floor. So that's the equivalent of a three-walled sukkah. The hay is 2.5 walls, but the door is open. And that leads him to conclude the following, and with that, we'll wrap this part of the session up. It says, The letter Hey has an opening at the bottom to represent the fact that everyone has an option to leave the ways of Torah, but it also has a door on the left side so that those who want to repent can return. The message, specifically for Sukkot, is that we spend the high holidays knocking on the door of repentance, waiting to be let in. And it is on Sukkot that we enter through that little door. And then he concludes, may we all merit experiencing a Sukkot that builds off of our spiritual gains of the high holidays and opens the door for further growth. And with that, let's get back to some jokes. Okay. Like I said, can't go wrong with Torah study. A giant wave, this has to do with Joshua. When the whole Red Sea thing was happening, and the waters were parting, and the wind was blowing, a giant wave swooshed onto the shore and swept Joshua into the sea. Joshua's mother went berserk and cried out, God, God, I know we don't go to synagogue as often as we should. I know we don't keep kosher outside the house, and I'm really, really sorry, but please give us back our little boy, please. Suddenly, a miracle occurred as yet another wave swept Joshua back onto the shore. His mother rushed up and grabbed her son. As the mother wrapped Joshua in towels to dry him off, she held up her hands to the blue sky and said, so where's his hat? Only a Jewish mother. During the Vietnam War, these are some golden oldies. During the Vietnam War, President Nixon welcomed Golda Meir to visit the White House, and they were discussing the strengths of each other's armies. And Nixon said, do you think we could swap generals? And Golda Meir said to him, which of my generals would you want? And Nixon said, General Rabin and General Dayan. Which of our generals would you want? Golda Meir thought for a moment and said, General Motors and General Electric. All right, two of Noah's former neighbors, a Nebuch and a Nudnik, were out walking when it began to drizzle. The Nudnik said to the Nebuch, why don't you open your umbrella? It won't help, replied the Nebuch. Why not? Moaned the Nudnik. It's got holes in it, said the Nebuch. Then why did you bring it? Said the Nudnik. I didn't think it would rain. Little Danny, in his Hebrew school, said there are three kinds of Jews: liberal, reform, and orthodontists. The scene is the Garden of Eden. Adam is speaking while Eve is knitting baby booties. And Adam says, we had plums, we had oranges, we had pineapples, bananas, figs, pomegranates, nectarines, watermelons, cantaloupes, peaches. But no, you had to have an apple. Tough night. All right, this one is from Albert Einstein. You didn't know what a comedian he was, did you? So Albert Einstein says, when a man sits for an hour with a pretty girl on his knee, it seems like a minute. But let him sit on a hot stove for a minute, and it's longer than an hour. That's relativity.
That's good.
Two youngsters were arguing the relative merits of their respective faiths. And the little Protestant boy said, bet you don't even know the difference between a Methodist, a Baptist, and a Jew. And the Jewish boy said, sure I do. A Baptist gets dunked in water over his head, but a Methodist only gets sprinkled. Okay, what happens to the Jew? A Jew? A Jew gets dry cleaned.
Dry clean.
Dry clean.
Okay. You got that one. Even I reject some of them. David Ben-Gurion, who was known to come from socialist background in the old days of Russia, he writes, most assuredly you can say that Adam and Eve were communists. After all, they didn't have a stitch of clothes on their bodies and nothing to eat but apples, and they still thought they were in paradise. Then, of course, there's the great philosopher Milton Berle. Yes. Fortunately, there are people on the screen who remember Milton Berle.
Oh, yeah.
In my previous synagogue, I could not have told this joke because nobody would have known who Milton Berle is.
Uncle Milty.
That's right. All right, so Milton Berle writes, my philosophy of life? Life is simple. The first thing to remember about life is don't worry about it. Really, there are only two things to worry about. Either you're successful or you're not successful. If you're successful, there's nothing to worry about. If you're not successful, there's only two things to worry about. Your health. If your health is good, there's nothing to worry about. If your health is bad, there's only two things to worry about. Either you're going to live or you're not going to live. If you live, there's nothing to worry about. And if you don't live, why, you've only two things to worry about. Either you're going to heaven or you're going down there. So if you're going to heaven, there's nothing to worry about. And if you go to the other place, you'll be so busy shaking hands with all your friends, you won't have time to worry. All right. Since we just finished the high holidays, these are my two favorite Yom Kippur stories. Doesn't mean you're going to laugh, but they're my favorite stories. Early one Yom Kippur morning, really early, the rabbi who loved golf, so you know it's not talking about me, that rabbi who loved golf woke up way much earlier than he needed to get to shul. And he woke up with an insatiable desire to go play a round of golf. This is Yom Kippur. And he decides it's early enough, no one will see me. I'll be there, I'll be done, I'll be back, I'll be washed up, I'll show up to shul, nobody will know the difference. And he gets up and goes to the golf course. He's all alone on the golf course. He tees up and drove off. He did the first hole, which was a par 4, in 3. The second hole he accomplished in 2. The angel in heaven, Gabriel, pleaded with the Almighty to punish the rabbi. And the angel said, God, how can you allow this to happen? It happened again and again. And finally, the rabbi got a hole in 1. At this point, Gabriel lost his temper at the Lord of the universe, Master of the universe. And he said, how can you not punish this man violating the holiest day of the year? The heavens were in turmoil. God, how can you not punish this sinner? Gabriel, my angel, the Lord laughed out loud. Did you ask yourself a simple question? Who can he tell?
Who can he tell? I said I heard it. It was cute. He tells a good story.
They're golden oldies, folks. All right, and this is the second one, my second favorite Yom Kippur story. Yom Kippur was drawing to a close. As always, it had been a long day. The congregation was tired and hungry after almost 23 hours of fasting and hours of praying. And Ne'ilah was about to start, the final service of the evening. And the rabbi comes up to the podium and he makes a confession to the congregation. He says, I'm sorry to tell you this. I've got nothing left. My voice is shot. I cannot continue the service. I'm out of gas. I got nothing left. My voice is gone. So I need somebody from the congregation to come forward and volunteer to lead the final service of the day. And the congregation was silent. Nobody came forward. The rabbi announced again, he begging, won't anyone do this mitzvah? No one volunteered. Eventually, someone put up his hand near the back of the room. Rabbi, I can help you. That was Mr. Stern. Please come up to the bima, the rabbi said. Thank you for volunteering. And Mr. Stern said, oh, no, you misunderstood. It's not me. I can't lead the service. But I know someone who will, my dog, Yankel. Of course, everyone in the room laughed hysterically, and nobody moved. Your dog. And then went on to wait for somebody real to volunteer. When it didn't happen, and he was still met with silence, he said, Mr. Stern, I guess we have no choice. Go bring Yankel, and let's see what he can do. So he runs home. He lived just around the corner, brings back Yankel. Yankel puts on a kippah, putting on a tallis, gets up in front of the shul, and belts out a ne'ilah like you never heard before. The rafters were shaking with emotion. The building, the floor, the carpet, everything was caught up in the emotion. The people were moved to tears from the beauty and the emotion of Yankel the dog leading this incredible ne'ilah service. The service finally ended. They blew the Tkiya Gedola. The service ended. Nobody left the room to run home to go eat. They were all rushing over to Mr. Stern and Yankel, the dog. And the rabbi said, Mr. Stern, I thank you for bringing this incredible chazan with you to our shul. We haven't heard such beautiful chanting since my childhood in Minsk. Why don't you get your dog to become a rabbi? And Mr. Stern says, you talk to him. He wants to be an accountant. It's a long way to go for whatever. Anyway, a couple of quickies. In all airplanes, just before takeoff and landing, a lighted sign flashes two messages: fasten seatbelts and no smoking. On El Al planes, there's a third message: take a piece of fruit. All right. Papa, I want to ask you a question, said little Julius after his first day of Sunday school. Yes, my son, what is it? Well, the teacher was reading the Bible to us and telling us all the stories about the children of Israel. She told us the children of Israel built the temple, the children of Israel crossed the Red Sea, the children of Israel made sacrifices. Didn't the grown-ups ever do anything? A grandmother was wheeling a toddler in a stroller while holding the hand of another little boy. She met an old friend that she hadn't seen in years. After the usual greetings, the woman friend said, these must be your grandchildren. How old are they? And the proud grandmother replied, God bless them. The lawyer is 2 and the doctor is 4. All right, we're going to end with a few quick one-liners.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, it's enough. I've tortured you folks enough. All right, here we go. I wasn't going to get a brain transplant, but then I changed my mind. Have you ever tried to eat a clock? It's very time consuming.
This one is in Mont's file if his life depends.
Mm-hmm. So what if I don't know the meaning of the word apocalypse? It's not the end of the world. A relief map. A relief map shows where the bathrooms are. I'm reading a book about anti-gravity. I can't put it down. And finally, the final attempt at humor for the evening. What is a thesaurus's favorite dessert? Synonym buns.
Synonym buns.
Well, folks, you've endured a long, long evening. Hope you had a little bit of fun.
Rabbi, you missed your profession.
No, I don't think so. Don't think so. Anyway, anybody have a favorite joke they want to share?
Not about.
Frida, you got to unmute if you want us to hear you. Unmute yourself.
He's trying, but Alana, only half the people became unmuted.
I
Because
think Frida's
they
saying,
didn't-
please, no
they-
more.
They didn't unmute themselves. I just asked everyone if they
I
wanted to
see.
There we
unmute
go.
themselves again.
Okay.
All right, so who's got a favorite joke you want to share?
I do. Oh, here I am.
Oh,
I
there
You
have,
do?
I have a
Frida,
good
good.
one. Okay?
Okay.
One liner.
Good.
What did Moses say when he came down from Mount Sinai? It
What?
looks like a good place to build a hospital.
Ah. All right, next year you're doing this show.
No, I'm not. That's my only one. I have one other, though. I do have one other, if you don't mind.
Go ahead, go for it.
Cartoon. This is from the Far Side. Cartoonist Gary Larson. It's a picture of an old man with a long white beard sitting at a table, and behind him is the brow of a boat, and it says A-R-K on the boat. And he's sitting there taking names down, and in front of him are 2 lions, 2 tigers, 2 ostriches, and it's raining. And way in the back, there are 2 unicorns. And one of the unicorn, obviously the man, says to the other one, "You want me to stand in line in the pouring rain? I'll take the next boat."
Very cute, very cute.
That's all I can.
Anybody else?
All right, Rabbi, I have one for you in the genre you've been delivering.
I'm sorry to hear it. Okay.
Yeah, I entered 10 puns in a contest to see which one would win. No pun intended.
Ooh. Okay,
Did.
got it. Next.
Here.
Len, I see you laughing. You got one?
My screen froze. I have no idea if it was that bad that it killed everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. It's fun as usual. You're always fun to be with. I can't wait for your classes. Are you going to start your classes again on Zoom?
Yes,
I really love your classes.
we're finalizing the dates. There'll be a 3-session class in the fall, winter, and a 3-session class in the spring.
Oh, good.
First one will be the book of Jonah, in-depth study of the book of Jonah, and the second one will be the book of Job, which is the most difficult book in the entire Bible. I saved that one for last.
Looking forward to it. We can't wait. That'll be fun.
Thank you.
You couldn't have picked a more cheerful book.
Well, the first one was.
Not Job.
Actually, Job has a good ending.
I think it's a fishy story to begin with.
The whale of a story. I know.
Joke.
That's included in tonight's meeting.
I'll have a joke if someone wants to hear it.
You got a joke? Oh, Muriel.
Muriel.
Moses was in the desert, and Aaron comes along and he finds Moses sitting on the side of the hill crying. And he says, "Why are you crying?" He says, "Don't you have a beautiful boy after all these years?" Yeah. And isn't the white
Hello.
lawn and everything else. So why are you crying? I can't find the tent.
What?
Very cute. Very cute.
And,
All right, last chance. Who wants to have the last joke? Come on, something makes you guys laugh. Certainly wasn't me tonight.
Yes,
Sure.
funny. A lot of them we've heard before. They were funny.
Well,
It's
I
always a
don't
good.
claim to be original.
It's always, sometimes you have to laugh. Life is so difficult. If we don't get a few laughs out of it, we're going to go out of our minds. So we got to laugh a little bit.
Well, I personally think the Achashvirus was the best joke of the night, but
Yeah,
that's me.
that was good.
That's probably the only one I actually came up with.
You know what would be fun? The poetry of the Bible, because there's so many beautiful, beautiful passages that are just so poetic that it would be wonderful to do that. Poetry.
I'll have to zoom that one in from Jerusalem.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold you.
Right, they're gonna hold you to it.
I think we.
All right, folks. Looks like we're done. Thank you all.
Thank
for
you,
coming.
Rabbi.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
bye-bye.
Fun.
Everybody.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, Alana.